Well, after another night of rest, we're back on day 4 of the Ranger build. And as I discussed previously, we're going to install a radio while we're waiting on the fuel tank and fuel pump, which should be here this afternoon. Which is cool, because I think the radio is probably more important than the fuel tank anyway. You know, where you got to keep up the golden rule of a hoopty, that the wheels and the stereo have to like equal or be worth more than the vehicle itself. So we're right on par. Maybe we'll hit Facebook Marketplace later and see if we can find some sweet wheels for it. Nah, just kidding. Well, all the wires are hooked up. Let's see if we have any audio. Ooh, we got power. Hey. We have no right front, and we have 0 rear. We only have a left front speaker. I wonder if I can pull the grill off that speaker and just make sure there's a speaker up there, because the wiring looks legit. I think a stereo shop actually did this at one point, or someone who knew what they were doing. Seems to have done this well, and they ran a separate wire to each individual speaker instead of going back through the factory system. It uses like a common ground. They actually pulled new wire through the cab. Maybe the rats got up in there and helped themselves to that too. Let's see what we can find out. Well, it's there. It's free. It does move. I'm not going to be able to get to that bottom screw, so I'm not even going to mess with it. I think we'll just leave it alone for now. That's something we'll have to re-attack in the future. In the middle of a radio install, I got a phone call from O'Reilly's, and they said, hey, come down here. We got a whole bunch of parts for you. So jumped in the truck and ran over there to pick up a brand new fuel tank to replace that crusty one, a new in-tank fuel pump, 4 spark plugs, which they did not have in stock, which seems odd. It seems like a very common spark plug. Maybe not. What was the total damage on this? $198 after tax, bringing our total on the Ranger up to $698 plus a radio, plus some little bit of wire, distributor cap, fuel filter, spark plug wires. That is a tune-up in a box for a Ford Ranger. Let's set some of these parts next to each other to make sure we got the right stuff here. You always want to double check early in the day, so in case something happened, you can get another set coming. Let's see, spark plug wires, let's make sure they've got the right boots. They do, they are the correct ones. Those are the correct wires. Cap, there was 2 options on this cap, whether or not it had the ignition module in the distributor or on the fender well. I'm pretty sure I guessed on this one. I am pretty sure, yeah, that's it. The fender well module will be mounted up here somewhere on the firewall, like it is in the Bronco. Good, I was correct on that as well. You guys saw that nasty fuel filter canister. Looks like this one came with fresh O-rings. We'll put that on there so we don't lose it. And lastly, the fuel pump. There were multiple options on this because there were multiple engine combinations. Some with 1 pump, some with 2 pumps, some with carburation, some with EFI, some with gas and some with diesel. So it took some narrowing down, but I think this is the correct one. This is the low volume, the 15 gallon per hour version of the in-tank pump, which then pushes, like I mentioned before, to the 35 gallon per hour inline pump. You can see there the fuel level sender. It just creates more resistance as it goes up. It's got to travel through more electricity to pass that current through. So there, I don't know what ohm rating it is, but it's maximum resistance and then little resistance. That's how your fuel gauge works. Just mirrors that essentially. With that, looks like a 1-to-1 replacement. Nice. Well, let's get all this stuff thrown in. On the way back from our rallies, I had the foresight to throw the gas can in the Bronco and fill it up. So as soon as we can get this stuff on here, we can get this thing turned over. Maybe even take it for a rip around the block. Okay, tune-up complete, fuel tank in and full. All the lines are hooked up. The power's hooked up. Well, you know what time it is. Let's see what happens. Keep an eye on that fuel pressure gauge. Oh, look at that, right to 42. I assume that's where you want it to be. I hear like a hissing sound on this regulator. I don't know if that's normal. I don't hear any leaks though, but it sounds like, I don't see any leaks, but it sounds like air is passing through this regulator. I think I can feel it actually. That's weird. Well, let's turn the key and see what happens. Okay, it runs on the starter, but as soon as I let off the starter, the truck dies. Interesting. All right, so I noticed this switch here when I bought it, but I kind of had a suspicion. It's wired right into the fuse box. And if you can hear that, it's running the fuel pump. I wonder what... It seems to me like it's really rich. If I give it gas, it tries to run. If I let off, it dies. Let me try it without the pump on. See if we can draw the pressure down a little bit and see if it starts. just watched me unstick some injectors. At least one was stuck open. I was in here watching that gauge. Every time I turned the pump on, the engine wanted to die. As soon as it came off of 0 PSI, it wanted to die. So I just kept flipping that switch kind of as often as I could. And every once in a while I could hold it on a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. Shoot, it looks like it's fixed now. We just unstuck an injector. That's awesome. Now she purrs. Wow. A little smoky in here. I've had a half a bottle of 44K on the shelf for quite a while now. I can't think of a better time to use it. Well, it's up and running. All the gauges came back. We have a fuel gauge. Our temp has been creeping up slowly. Oil pressure's finally showing up. Hey, so we did get a brake light. I don't know where that came from, but I'm less concerned about that because this thing is running excellent. I think we're gonna take it for a drive. I think anybody will notice I don't have a bed. The shifter's a little sloppy, but wow, she's got all the torque. She's not even struggling. The last time I drove this, it was on, I'm guessing, 2 cylinders. This is a night and day difference. $700 Ford Ranger. What you looking at, Karen? This kid's running. You better run. No smoke or anything back there. Nice. Well, after a quick wash, it looks really good. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. But the mailman just stopped by and dropped off a couple of great things. One is the stereo install kit I've been waiting on. It was about $9 on eBay. And the second thing came from Rock Auto, and it is a shifter rebuild kit. All the bushings and all the retainers and keepers. This shifter, it's in gear right now, but it's just floppy and sloppy. A couple times I thought it was in neutral, so I let the clutch out and it jumped forward on me. There, it's difficult to find neutral. That's neutral, but you can see that's not going to work. Sometimes you just have to do the non-manly thing and just get the directions out. Okay. So in the directions here, it's showing 3 Torx or Allen head bolts that retain a metal ring. It would appear that that is not our transmission. But this was the only kit available for an 85 Ford Ranger, so I just threw it in the cart without looking. Well, Ranger update, and it's not good news, I'm afraid. Being an 85 Ford Ranger, there were 2 options on the transmission, a Mazda and I think a TKY option, and this one has the TKY transmission. The shifter assembly itself is discontinued. You can no longer find it. There's no known fix for this, and in fact a lot of the forums said you just need to upgrade the transmission to the Mazda unit that does still have a serviceable shifter. And I don't know that that's in the cards for this truck. Unfortunately, there have been some fairly grisly developments on the Ranger project. You may notice the seat is out behind me. I took it to the car wash to vacuum it out, to get all the gravel and rat turds off the floorboard. While I was there, I noticed the floor was a little squishy, a little spongy, and I started to pull the carpet back, and it revealed a pretty nasty sight. For some reason, the driver's side floorboard is completely gone. This is beyond Swiss cheese. This metal is just, it's so thin, and it goes so far up the transmission tunnel, and it's even the entire seam weld here on the driver's side. I'm not going to let this change the path of the Ranger. I still want to save it. I still think overall it's a really great truck. I called my glass guy. I said, what do you think would cause this just here in this area? And it, you know, obviously it was water damage, a lot of it over a long time. My body guy thinks maybe the windshield seal gave up the ghost and water just cascaded down the A-pillar and just puddled down here under the carpet, and it couldn't evaporate because the padding under the carpet just held it like a sponge and just kept it wet for years. And that kind of checks out because it does follow almost the exact signature of the jute padding that goes on the back of the flooring. But I jumped on the internet and I found a local company in Kansas, LMC Truck. You guys have probably heard of them. They sell floorboards for these for $39.99. I'm fairly confident that we can find about 90% of good metal to weld it to. We may have to scab in a couple extra little pieces to bridge some holes. But that is the plan for the Ranger, and it's going to take a minute. It's going to put us on a little pause. The pan comes here via ground freight, so probably expect a week on that, even though it's local.